Mexico is one of the largest states of the American continent. It has about 3 times the area of Turkey, but not so many years ago, it actually looked like this. It spans a large part of the US territory along the southern and Pacific coasts and includes important states such as California, Texas, and Arizona. Yes, in the past, Mexico was twice as big as it is today. If someone had managed to preserve this territory, it would have been one of the 7 largest countries in the world, surpassing India with 1424 kilometers of territory. However, over time, they lost most of their territory and their borders narrowed towards the south. How did the Mexican Empire, one of the most powerful states, rapidly collapse? To answer all these questions, we need to travel back in history as we always do. If you subscribe and like the video, I will start telling you. In 1519, Spanish explorer Fernán Cortés landed on the Yucatan Peninsula and invaded the Aztec Empire. He experienced a great change. Spanish rule had not yet begun in the Americas, known as the New World. From the 16th century onwards, the Spanish began to increase their expeditions to extract more minerals and move further north. They established the first Spanish settlement near Santa Fe in what is now the United States. Much has been said about how Spanish soldiers defeated the hands of the Mayans and Aztecs, while the Puebla Indians made new discoveries in the Texas and California regions, but I can say that they shaped the diseases they brought from Europe without infecting the people of the natives. When diseases such as measles, influenza, and typhoid were added to smallpox, they faced many deaths. According to some estimates, these diseases wiped out 0% of the indigenous population. This is a very sad figure. Over the next 200 years, by developing a complex network of missionary activities and trade routes, they managed to extend Spanish rule over a large area of North America, but by the 19th century, at the beginning of their reign, Spanish domination of the region was under serious threat. Rebellions and independence movements had not yet begun in the Spanish colonial empire, so these movements were also influential in Mexico. In 1810, the Mexican Miguel Hidalgo called for an uprising against Spanish colonization and oppression. When this call was responded to by the people in Mexico, it was a difficult time for Spain. The Spanish were under Napoleon's occupation on the European mainland. King Ferdinand VII was deposed by Napoleon, but if you ask me, this is normal. The interesting thing is that Jesus was the brother of Napoleon, the new king of Spain, Joseph Bonaparte. There were many people in New Spain who did not like the new king. Some of them formed small rebel groups and wanted independence from Spain. The fact that Spain was occupied was one of the main factors that gave the Mexican rebels an advantage, but they were seriously resisted by the Spanish forces that remained to defend the territory. This struggle lasted more than 10 years, but it was not sustainable for Spain. In the end, the Mexican separatists won a great victory and declared the independence of Mexico. In 1821, Spain officially recognized this independence. So the newly established Mexico was in fact a legacy spanning a vast geography. This territory stretched from Texas to California and included what is now the United States of America. But its control was very weak, especially in the northern regions, as young Mexico faced many challenges, including economic problems, political turmoil, and regional conflicts. And this caused tensions among the American settlers. Speaking of American settlers, more and more settlers were pouring into the sparsely populated lands of Mexico, and the United States was expanding westward at an incredible pace. So Mexico allowed Americans to settle in Texas, but there were some rules. Incoming settlers had to be Mexican citizens and follow Mexican rules. At first there seemed to be no problem, but the Americans' dissatisfaction grew due to cultural differences, economic concerns, and political disagreements between the settlers and the Mexican government. These events also increased tensions and even the epidemic in Texas. As a result of the conflicts, Texas seceded from Mexico and became an independent state. Although the Mexican government did not recognize this independence, it did not have enough power to defeat the rebels. Thus, Texas separated from Mexico and remained an independent state for 10 years until 1845, when it was proclaimed by the United States. This further increased tensions between the two countries, which led to the Mexican-American War a year later. In the end, the Mexicans were defeated by the much stronger United States. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed in 1848, but it was a so-called peace treaty. It had very important consequences for the future of Mexico. Because of the clauses imposed by this treaty, Mexico accepted the transfer of Texas to the United States and lost all the other northern states, including California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Colorado. It looks like a huge territorial loss for the US, but it never is. Today, Texas is the largest oil producer in the US, supplying a significant part of the oil production of the American state. Similarly, New Mexico, California, Wyoming, and Colorado are among America's top oil-producing states. While the treaty was a great demoralization that negatively affected the country's development, it transformed the United States into a superpower, expanding from east to west. Of course, this transformation was not so easy. Some scholars believe that the Mexican-American War led to the American Civil War, meaning that the United States paid its own price, but the US expansion into Mexican territory was not limited to this. Within its borders, the United States has built a railroad link that is planned to run through the south of the country. Therefore, the Americans cleverly negotiated the purchase of Mexican territory, which eventually led to the American borders as we know them today. Many in Mexico interpreted this sale as a betrayal, as the country had become even smaller after the losses in the Mexican-American War. A state superior to Mexico in many areas, both in terms of economic and military power, I'm not sure, but if Mexico had liberated itself from Spanish colonialism earlier and stabilized quickly, maybe history would have been very different. Is America really a country that seizes opportunities, or is it a country that is given opportunities to grow? I don't have a clear answer to these questions. As you know, the Americans also bought land from the British, the French, and the Dutch. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you watch my New York Cavalry video. It has a really interesting story. To summarize the topic, Mexico is one of the largest economies in South America. Although it is a country struggling with economic problems today, it is also very strong in terms of population. If the American War had been fought in defense of the land they inherited from the Spanish, perhaps the America of today. So what do you think about this topic? Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening to me so far. See you in the next video. Take care of yourself. Stay in good health and peace.